I'm the vice president of business on the team. So business sort of encompasses finance, operations, and public relations. So I do help out all three of those. But this is about finance, so I can use those skills here. Any other questions?
How many kids are on the business team?
It's a very good question. We have around 10 people who come in, and we also have a virtual team, so people who are engineers and software engineers who can't afford to work while they're in the lab will also work with us online. So for one example, you may have heard that we got the NASA grant recently. That was a joint effort between, I think it was 5 software kids, 5 engineering kids, and 7 business kids, something like that. So we do frequently work with our other departments and try to achieve goals. All right. So cool. So yeah, I'm the vice president of. Oopsies, this is a little close. I'm the vice president of business for StuySplash. I'm also the Dean's List nominee of 2023. So that's fun. First of all, what is a nonprofit? A nonprofit organization is a group organized for purposes other than generating profit, in which no part of the organization's income is distributed to its members, directors, or officers. This is the definition under Cornell law. Most nonprofits fall into one of 3 main categories, including public charities, private foundations, and private operating foundations. None of which are very important because robotics teams are mostly private foundations, especially if they have a 501c3. Being a 501c3, or a registered nonprofit, is very important because there are no taxes on your team when you have to pay for stuff. You can offer tax breaks for sponsors, and there are a lot more grant opportunities open to specifically 501c3s. Okay, so very quickly, sponsorships and grants. This is a quick overview. I'll go more into depth on sponsorships and grants, but sponsorships, I'll define them as when a company or organization sends money or materials or mentors to a team, assist a team consistently year after year. So for example, McDonald's sends my team $1,000 yearly. The benefits of sponsorships are that they are a long-term source of money if you can keep them going, and the resources gained are usually flexible. They won't require you to spend it on one thing or another. They'll let you have your freedom with it. Grants, on the other hand, is a one-time donation from an organization, usually through an application that you have to fill out. Might involve some essays. For example, the McDonald's FRC program initiative grants $10,000 to an FRC team once. The benefits of grants are, once you submit them, you don't really have to think about them. There's no real reason to continue following up and asking them for more and more, because they will just give it to you once, and once you fill out the application, that's it. However, they are kind of odd because some of them are technically grants, and we'll give it to you once, and the others are more so sponsorships, but I'll get into that later. Okay. So this is the table of contents. I'm going to talk about sponsorships, I'm going to talk about grants, a little bit about budgeting, although this is more general advice, and how to approach the season, in a term that I call first finance season. Sponsorships. Okay, so the sponsorship part 1. When you're thinking about sponsorships, and when you're going and approaching sponsorships, you do want to ask yourself, what do I need this money for? Is it for robot parts? Is it for travel expenses? Is it for laptops or technology that you need? And depending on your answer to this, you may want to choose a different company. For example, AndyMark, Rev for robot parts. JetBlue and Hilton might be able to help you out if you get if you get discounts because you have so many bookings for certain hotels for plane tickets. Computer companies, this is more of a smaller one just to fit the example, but some of them may be able to give you secondhand laptops or help you out in obtaining older models. So, the second part is research and development. When you look at a company and you want to apply to a sponsorship for them, take a look at their mission statement, their investors, their sponsors, and look deeper into the values that the company stand for. Some things that you might want to look out for are renewable and clean energy, inspiring STEM education, encouraging nonprofits that benefit the community, and other themes that will run along these topics. you also want to figure out who you will contact. A lot of people on our team kept putting "for whom this concerns" in our first sentence. And you do not want to do that. You want to give it to a certain person. For example, Mr. Nicholas, I would like $1,000. You want to address it to a specific person so they feel like it's personal. And when you figure out who you will contact, and you want to try and address someone who has a title. It could be the director or the president of human capital or outreach initiatives, or some sort of title like that where they have control over where the money will go. Begin drafting an email to try and go and hit both these targets, because you want to try and appeal to the mission statement and the values as well as appeal to the person you are talking to. Just like a college essay, you want to write this well. So you can take your time, be respectful, and be professional. So final checks and when to send the email. You should definitely talk to a mentor, director, or team leader that's on your team and show it to them. It's never bad to have a second point of eyes on any letter that you write, no matter how good you are at writing. This is a small note. You should note the date when you send the sponsorship. This will come up later when I talk about first finance season. Google Email has a very useful function where you can schedule to send an email when you want it sent. It has to be in the future. I don't think they've developed technology to do it in the past yet. If you schedule an email, if you're sending it on the weekend at 3 a.m., maybe schedule it at Monday at 8 a.m. so your reader has it at the top of their inbox when they open it Monday morning. Things like this are small, but may be able to help the person who you are reaching out be more pliant to giving you stuff. Waiting and when to resend the letter. Very often, we will not get a reply for a couple of days, and students will panic. Do not panic. Please wait about 5 to 7 days, and then resend a reminder to the company. Sometimes they won't see it. There might be whatever reason they have. It's their reason. They're the ones giving you the money. You should respect that. When you resend, simply restate who you are, and follow up from your previous email. If there is no response for them, find another person at that company. It could be higher, it could be lower, it could be a subordinate. Whatever it is, you want to try and find another vector to try and get inside the company. Don't be discouraged if there is no response at all. This will happen because maybe they won't take you seriously. Whatever the issue is, don't get discouraged because of this. You should just keep going, trying to find new companies, trying to find new people. Now, worse than if they don't talk to you is when a company says no. But again, please don't get discouraged just because a company says no. It might be they don't have enough funding. I mean, if you look at the world right now, inflation is crazy. So maybe they might not have enough money. Maybe they just need to do different things. Maybe it's locked up in assets. You don't know that. You don't want to assume. So don't get discouraged. Don't take it personally. Maintain professionalism and thank them for responding. This is a very important thing. Do not leave them on red. If a company says yes, amazing, good job. But there are a couple other steps you need to do. Confirm their amount, thank them for their generosity, and ask how they will be paying, especially if they are applying because of your 501c3 status. You want to have a donation receipt on hand that you can give to them, and therefore they can file it with their taxes. And you should add this data to the budget, which I'll talk about later. So next up are grants. Now, I'm going to separate them into 3 different types. Restricted grants are grants that require a proposal and a detailed financial plan about your project to be approved. Many of the restricted grants give significantly larger amounts of money, so long as you can justify your expenditures. This part of the presentation will actually talk more about restricted grants than unrestricted grants, but they are pretty much the same thing. It's just that restricted grants require more information and require you to have a very specific, direct method of how you are going to use their money. Unrestricted grants, they will give you money because of your cause, because of your statement, because of something you wrote to them, and you'll be able to do what you like with it. They might have conditions sometimes, but usually they will let you do what you want with it. The reason I have grants in quotation marks is because there are some grants that are essentially sponsorships in function, but are grants when you try to apply to them. I like to call these grants because more so it's about how you apply to them and how you respond to them. That makes them less of a sponsorship and more of a grant. I've sent proposal a lot, but proposals are very structured plans on the information of a future project, including but not limited to its cost, location, impact, and timeline. Make sure to plan these first before you apply, before you go and look for grants. So, before you apply to grants, what do you need? Oh, God. Oopsies. The first step to a successful grant is to figure out what your team requires and weighing the benefits and costs, as well as how often it will be used and what problem it solves. Basically, if I have something that I want to have, or maybe there's something I need to have, what is it? How can I get it? What companies can I get it from? Is there shipping involved? Could there be failures with it? Do I need multiple parts? Who on my team do I have to pull in who will help me understand why I need this and how badly I need this? Second step is to get identification. So be sure to have information stored somewhere online, such as your EIN, your coach's contact information, a finance plan, and if you have it, demographic information of your team or your school. Some grants or sponsorships will only be looking for the demographic information of your team and school, or what demographics your team will target. And yeah. Sorry. When you're writing a proposal, you should have 3 very clear ideas in mind. Make sure you know what the overall cost of this project is. Now, some of these projects may cost a lot more than others, or these projects may have fluctuating prices because of the nature of the project. What you want to do is try to calculate not just an exact price, but a price where you feel comfortable saying, okay, this will cost the same amount 2 years in the future, 3 years in the future. And you want to get that price, and that's the price that you want. What is the benefit to the team, the school, the community? Why do you need this? This is something you should definitely think about while you're writing a proposal, because this is the basis of your proposal. If the proposal benefits team, for example, word it around education in STEM, and if the project benefits the school, you can try to include diversity in STEM and STEAM. If the proposal benefits the community, definitely write about the impact you are having on the community. Another thing is a clear, detailed timeline. You want to know when you will be able to finish this, but also what steps you have to take to finish this and when you will complete those steps. If you have this, people will have more confidence in you. You will be able to show your plan and say, this is what I will do, this is when I'm able to finish it by. Make sure that this plan is approved by the people who will be working on it, or at least leaders of the people who will be working on it, and they understand that this is reasonable. Yes, I think I can do X in X amount of time. Try to finish writing 2 weeks before completion. I'm a Stuyvesant student, as are a couple people in this room, so we like to finish things a day beforehand. Please don't do that for these applications. They're pretty important. So you should definitely try and buffer in a couple of weeks beforehand and finish your final draft. However, extenuating circumstances are often unavoidable, so do your best to adapt to changing circumstances. That being said, make sure you have a team working with you. Again, like I said earlier, multiple eyes are very useful. They will catch mistakes you did not. So make sure you involve at least one other person with you on this. When writing, always make team leadership aware of your progress. Especially if you're on a larger team, it's hard for the team leaders to read everyone's minds and know where you're at. For example, in StuyPulse, during StuySplash, someone was supposed to get plates for the pizza, right? And some of you guys got really small plates. The reason for that was actually because we were supposed to buy those plates months ago. And then nobody bought them because someone else thought someone else was going to buy them, and then it just kept cycling. So that's a small example. It has nothing to do with grants, but you should definitely make team leadership aware of your progress and what you're doing and what you have accomplished to make sure that they know how to organize the team better and make sure nobody's missing plates. So, flesh your ideas out effectively as possible. For a lot of the seniors here, you might see this in your college applications. They're pretty much the same thing. You want to make sure you are effective as possible. You can use flowery language to prove a point, but you shouldn't overuse it, and include statistics and projections about your project as much as you can. Again, this is something I'm going to stress. Make sure you have time before the deadline to submit and edit. If you catch a last-minute mistake, you don't want to catch it 2 minutes before. You want to catch it 2 hours or 2 weeks beforehand. Make sure your coach or lead mentor sees this before they submit it. Because again, they are an adult, maybe they have some experience with this company, oh, they think like one or two things aren't so useful. Make sure that they look at it at least once so they know. Okay. Something that's very important is check your grants periodically. Some grants will post it on their website or will email you. And if they are emailing you, then just check the email that you signed up with often enough. And if they're posting on their website, you might want to bookmark it and check it like once a week, once every 2 days. What the amount and frequency that you are checking this depends, but you should definitely try to stay active on the grants that you applied for. So next is budgeting. As a disclaimer, budgeting is extremely important to a team, but each team has a different budget, a different mission, a different purpose, and especially different circumstances. These should be the things that influence your budget more than what I'm saying, more than what anyone else is saying. And if you are leading and making a budget, please don't take anything to heart unless they know exactly what your circumstance is and they know and they've worked with that kind of circumstance before. Everyone has different ones. Everyone has different circumstances. A rookie team's budget is not the same as Cheesy Poof's. So you should definitely think about how much money do I have, how much money is affordable, and what should I do with that. Following with that, remember to make a goal for your season. For the people who saw Mr. Blaze's presentation earlier today, you should definitely make a goal before you build anything. And that's the same here. Before you budget, you should make a goal for what you want to accomplish that season, and then make a budget surrounding it. So, without further ado, budget. First of all, make a list of how much money, how much positive net gain you're getting from a company, from companies, from sponsors, from whoever. As long as you're getting money from someone or some organization, make sure to write it down somewhere and note all of it so you know how much money you're receiving each year. When you get new sponsors or you get new money, write this money into the list and make sure to compile the data on somewhere digital. So there are required operating costs for a lot of first teams. So get your most important funds out of the way. First registration, sheet metals, gearboxes, critical electronic components. These things should be brought together first. These are things that you will need year after year after year, no matter what the game is, no matter what you are doing. You will need these things. These kind of things are is stuff you should put together into one list and make sure you take that off immediately before you even start budgeting. So you should make sure to do this. In order to make a good budget, make a plan with the leaders of your team, because if you are assigning unreasonable amounts of money to different departments without their consent, they may not be able to accomplish your goals. So come together with the people who are building this, the people who know what they need. Avoid generalizations. And I say this kind of half and half because I don't like hearing, I want $1,000 on tools. I'd rather hear 300 on hammers and 700 on hacksaws. Now, I do not need to know exactly what hacksaw you need and exactly what hammer you need, but kind of going to the nitty-gritty, knowing about how much you want for a smaller, specialized piece of equipment is much more useful when you justify a budget. And in this way, you should try to make sure that your budget is not something that someone made in 2 minutes. It's that someone thought out, okay, I'm going to need this for the season, therefore I need about this much money to cover. Verify and inventory what you have. Make sure you are not wasting anything by ordering spare parts that you don't need or by ordering equipment that you already have. Make sure you don't already have these things and then figure out what you still need from there. Yeah, definitely, please note your purchases digitally. Don't do it on paper. I don't know if anyone does this on paper, but it's so much harder. Don't try and do that. So, what happens if you go over budget? It's bad. But first of all, instead of panicking, figure out how much you went over budget, and why did you go over budget. Could it have been human error? Did someone forget to put in shipping for something and then added it in before adding it into the budget? Did they add the wrong price, the wrong quantity? Could it have been exceptional internal circumstances? Let's say my robot broke, or an expensive part broke, something happened. Or it could have been rising costs in the market. This year, our budget was almost exceeded for the reasons that Rami's went up in price because Raspberry Pi sold out. So those kind of things are things you cannot control, and things that just happen to make you go over budget. Make sure to update these expenditures when it happens. Note the reason and keep it on the list so you understand how to tackle it next time. So I'm going to go into the first finance season. This is not official, by the way. Probably, I hope you don't. So, this is a fiscal calendar over on the right. A little bit weird, but quarter 1 starts in January, quarter 2 starts in April, quarter 3 starts in July, and quarter 4 starts in October. Fiscal quarters are a 3-month period. You can read that definition, but basically what it means is that it's a 3-month period of time for a company, and this year is split up into 3-month periods to better suit them. The first finance season starts a little bit before Champs, at the time that the financial quarter 2 ends, which is around May or June. While quarter 3 is beginning July, teams should start to begin asking for sponsorships and applying for grants so that when quarter 4 begins, October, they already have the experience and knowledge how to fill them out, and students will have leaders and mentors who can help work with them. As a reminder, once quarter 4 ends, that's the deadline for tax returns for that year. So it is best to try and reach out to companies before Christmas. Sorry. Okay, and that's it. Does anyone have any questions? Hi. Sorry. Also, one thing, you might notice that I didn't talk about quarter 1 much, and that should be your competition season for all different types, whether you're FTC, FLO, or FRC. You should be focused on your competitions because these are things, especially if you win, these are things you can write into your sponsorship packets, things that you can tell your sponsors, hey, I accomplished this, hey, I got innovation and control, hey, I won Inspire at this event, hey, I did really well at a qualifier. These are the kinds of things that you can write about in your sponsorship packet and you can tell to your sponsors in order to get more sponsors. If you really want to work here, you might want to think about potential grants that you want to do, you might want to think about companies you want to reach out for, but definitely focus on your competitions, focus on making sure that your public relations are good, focus on getting your name out there before doing finance in quarter 1. Okay. Before I take questions, thank you for John. You reached out to me last summer, and this is the reason that this presentation was made. So thanks for reaching out, and thanks for making this possible. Does anyone have any questions? Sorry. Hi.
How would you balance money-based grant/sponsorships with material-based sponsorships?
You don't need to. You don't need to balance them necessarily unless you're getting too much material. So let's say I have a restricted grant that gets me this water bottle, but someone is offering me a free water bottle. Why can't I take 2 water bottles? Now, obviously, in robotics, a lot of stuff is complicated. It's not just water bottles, and you can't have 2 of them sometimes. But restricted grants require you to accomplish it, but don't always require you to use your funds towards that purpose. They require you to finish an objective, and they give you money towards that purpose. You don't need to necessarily use that money to accomplish that purpose. So if you get a restricted grant, let's say, to build this water bottle, but someone else says, hey, I'll build it for you, then you can take that build, show the person that you built it, and keep the money in the back end. Any other questions? Hi, Nick.
How do you build like sponsorship email templates? So our team does. We basically have body paragraph. We just like insert the company's like, I don't know what it's called, like motivation.
I have mixed feelings about sponsorship. Oh, right. So Nick asked about sponsorship, whether we do sponsorship templates. So I have mixed feelings about sponsorship templates. Obviously, it's a good idea when you want to flaunt your team's achievements, but definitely do not do a template and send it to 500 companies. Make sure to include at least a sentence or a paragraph about that company, why that company should invest in you, and make sure to appeal to them directly. This is the part where you appeal to the writer, sorry, the reviewer, you appeal to the company, and you try to appeal to someone so they can give you money. You don't want to be one of 500 automatic companies. You want to be a company, you want to be a robotics team reaching out to that company specifically, even if you are just writing one line about how, oh, we saw in the news you invested in something, or oh, we saw in the news how you went to this event. Even just one or two things is much better than having nothing at all. Hi.
Who do you usually like email it to? Like, what type of person are we looking for to email this?
Okay, so for an email, you want to look now. LinkedIn is a very good tool to use. Look for a director, a president, a vice president of human capital or outreach initiatives. There are a lot of different flavors throughout many different companies and how charity works, but generally speaking, if you go onto their website, they will have a contact that you can reach out to, but try not to use the contacts where it's like, oh, company@gmail.com. Try to go for a specific person within that company because it's harder to track who you're contacting. In that same vein, you will have to use it to whom it is concerned.
Thank you.
Hi.
I noticed in your budgeting, you didn't list taxes. You did speak to them later on.
Yes, because, well, okay, budgeting definitely, if you are not a 501c3, you will need to file taxes. I do not know how to file taxes because I haven't filed taxes, but to that point, taxes are very important to a non-501c3 robotics team. A lot of what I wrote here does not apply to those teams, but yes, you should definitely budget in taxes for each of your purchases, but I don't think, and as well as your sponsorships, because those, the government will take taxes from the sponsorships and grants that you receive.
Follow-up
Yep.
question. First, like the students do all the work. I assume it goes the same way with sponsorships and grants that the students are sending out the emails?
Yes. So, for one example, we had our lab grand opening on Thursday. We invited our mentor, Shelly, great person, invited someone named Christopher Marte over to our school. He did not reply for 2 months. We sent it to him one night from a student, an email, and he responded within 10 minutes. Whether or not it's intentional, we don't know, but students are much better when they're reaching out to someone than an adult, a mentor, or a coach is. Yep.
Does StuySplash usually do, I guess, in-school fundraisers, like bake sales and stuff?
It's a little harder for us to do that now, but we do try and do those. Usually, though, the bulk of our money comes from sponsorships and grants. So the ones that we do in school are usually aimed towards a specific charity and go under outreach initiatives. Yep.
When you're writing your proposal, what else do you write to the company to convince them to sponsor you?
I can't hear you a little well.
You talked about this a little bit. When you're writing a proposal, is there anything else you mention to the company to convince them to sponsor you guys?
I'm not understanding you quite well, but when you write to a company, when you're writing a proposal, you want to talk about the impact that your proposal has on whatever scale you are doing it at. I like to think of it as scope. If you are doing it on a local scope, focus on the local impacts. But if you're doing it on a wide scope, you can focus on both the smaller impacts and the larger impacts. So let's say I'm cleaning my room. The impact that I have on my room is it looks a lot cleaner. But let's say I am ripping out the floorboards and replacing them with new floorboards. The impact I have is that the room looks cleaner, but also that I have to reorganize my room a lot more. It's a weird analogy, sorry. I can't really think of a better one, but you do want to try and stress every part that you're impacting, especially if you have a much wider scope for that money. Yep.
What would you recommend for like smaller teams that are just starting out on the robotics field for like financial income that don't get sponsorships?
Well, you should try and get sponsorships. You should try and get sponsorships. You can write sponsorship emails, but if you don't feel like you are successful in that field, you should definitely turn to grants. Grants do not care how big your club is, as long as your mission is solid, as long as you have a plan, as long as you have a proposal. Whether your capabilities to do that plan is limited is up to your team. However, grants do try and look for the proposal itself rather than how big a team is, how much money they've already gotten, and how many accomplishments they have.